everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be talking about the iPhone SE. So if you guys watched the last video, you know that I've been using the iPhone SE in place of my iPhone 7 for the past week. So I've learned a lot of things about the iPhone SE, and I'm going to break it down into three parts. First is going to be the random thoughts I had about it. Second, the good. Third, the bad. And surprisingly, the goods and bads were equal there. So I thought there was going to be a lot more disadvantages. It wasn't that bad. It was actually pretty enjoyable. And right off the bat, I want to let you know that performance was never an issue throughout the usage of this phone. I am a power user. Performance never lagged. I never had too many slowdowns. It performed generally excellent. Only issue I was having throughout was the battery life. So I'll get into that in the cons. I'm going to start off with the random thoughts. First random thought is, because of the small form factor of this phone when you compare it to something like a Galaxy S8 or anything else, it's just completely dumbfounding, especially when you go back and forth. You just think that the other phones are giants because there's just so much screen and real estate there. And because I carry the S8 with me as well as this phone, it was just so weird switching back between the two because this one's so tiny, that one's so huge. Another thing I noticed while I was using this phone, which is probably a bad thing, is I was so much more tempted to have this in my hand and use it while I was driving. Because it's so comfortable and I can just use it very simply with one hand, I was so much more tempted to just grab the phone while I was driving. Otherwise, it's just sitting there in the car. My 7 Plus is usually, I never pick that up because it's so heavy and I really can't operate it properly while I'm driving anyway, so I never bother. I just set everything I need to before I get moving, and I don't touch it. The SE, but it's so small and comfortable, I just kept picking it up, and I knew I shouldn't, but it's so comfortable, and I'm not sure that's a really good thing, but it is a good thing because it's you know how comfortable and easy it is to use with one hand. So I'm gonna go on to the bad part of this phone's experience, and anybody who's had a larger phone or somebody who's coming from iPhone 6, 6 Plus, 6S, 6S Plus, or even the 7 or 7 Plus, I highly doubt you will, but if you're coming from those phones or any Android, any modern Android from the past 2 years, the biggest challenge will be battery life. The iPhone SE's battery is only 1,624 milliamp hours. So that's a very small battery. It's almost half comparative to most of the other phones out there. And it's more than half when you compare it to the newer phones out there that have 3,500, 3,600 milliamp hour batteries as standard. So the battery life is definitely a big factor that really, in a sense, it ruined my experience with this phone because otherwise it was really good. The battery life, especially on the first day initially when I made the switch, I charged the phone about 4 times throughout the day. So I woke up, within 2 or 3 hours, I was already down to 20 or 30%. Then I had to charge it up again, and the cycle kept going on until I believe I had to plug it in for the 4th time around 9 or 10 p.m., and I just left it plugged in for the rest of the night. The next day, I used low power mode. Low power mode, interestingly, it completely changed the experience because I had the phone and I used it the entire day without having to charge it up again. Again, I did reduce my usage a little bit on the phone, but it wasn't that significant. I would say about 15% less than what I usually do. But with low power mode, it did last me the entire day. But again, it does cut off a lot of the phone's features, such as push notifications on emails, which is important to me, as well as the screen lock time and background processes. It kills a lot of that stuff. And it does slow down performance on low power mode. But again, if you like the battery, if you want the battery to last long in a pinch, it's there. And I'm glad it is because you do need it a lot of times. Another thing that is really annoying is this, because of the width of the phone, it is pretty thin, especially when you compare it to the S8. Let me just put it in front of the S8. You can see that you have an extra, at least, I'm going to say, what is it? You have a decent amount of space more. I'm sorry, I don't know the exact measurements, but you have a decent amount of space more in width on the S8 and almost any other normal new phone. So the advantage with that is the keyboard. The keyboard is a lot more spaced out. It's a lot more easier to type in keys. And especially if you use 2 hands, I use 2 hands to type. I use both my thumbs like this, so it becomes a lot easier when the keyboard is a little bit more spaced out so you can comfortably hit the keys. With this phone, however, the keys are bunched together really tightly because of the screen's width. So that makes it so much more easier to make a lot of mistakes. I made so many mistakes, especially hitting adjacent buttons. It wasn't too bad, but I kept hitting a lot more adjacent buttons than I ever would on, say, my 7 Plus or any other phone. So there is that kind of issue, especially if you have fat thumbs. I would really advise not to get this phone because it would kind of annoy you from time to time. So I would recommend the next one, the iPhone 6 or 7, because that's a little bit wider and it's a lot more easier to type on. So one of the last disadvantages of this phone has to be the fact that the content, especially viewing videos and movies on this phone, is not going to be that good. It's a really small screen and it wasn't really made for the purpose of watching videos and watching content, consuming a lot of content. You can watch a few YouTube videos in a pinch, but it'll feel a lot better if you were using a larger phone or an iPad or a computer to watch videos, because it's a small screen, so you do have a very condensed picture. It comes with the territory of the phone, and if you've never had a phone bigger than this, you honestly won't know the difference. But for someone like me who's had bigger phones, it really wasn't fun. I didn't even bother watching YouTube videos on this. I just watched on different phones or my computer. So the last disadvantage that I found during my user experience of this phone was the content. So since the screen is small, a lot of the content is cut off. It's not completely shown, so you have to scroll up and down between. Even just sometimes some photos on a website, what happens is it's not completely viewable. You have to scroll up and down on the same image just to see the entire image. So that's another issue, is that a lot of websites, a lot of apps, and a lot of content isn't optimized for a screen that's only 4 inches. The minimum now is about 5 inches, 4.7 being the least with the iPhone 7 right now. So the biggest issue was that a lot of content seemed cut off. It didn't seem optimized for this phone. It wasn't everywhere, but a lot of times I definitely could feel the differences, especially when you were on messages or some kind of app where you have a thread of like messages on WhatsApp or something. What happens is a lot of your messages cut off, so you can only see like 3 messages that you sent in the past chat, instead of being able to see at least 5 or 6 on the 7 Plus or the 7. Looking at the overall picture though, the bad parts aren't that bad, but it definitely will be a deal breaker for some people. But some people who aren't power users and don't use their phones so much, they won't care. So let's move on to the good. This phone is actually very good. I really enjoyed my usership experience. The performance is excellent. The camera was very good. The camera is right out of the 6S, so it's not too far behind. It's obviously not as good as the new phones, but it's not bad in any sense. The front camera, however, that's a different story. It's not the same front camera from the iPhone 6S, which this phone basically shares everything else with. It's from the iPhone 5S, which is a 1.2 megapixel shooter. Not very impressive, especially if you love your selfies. If you don't really care about selfies like me, it doesn't matter at all. I didn't even notice it. It was just a spec comparison that I'm making. The rear camera, excellent. There's no issues with it. There is no OIS, but unless you're a serious videographer, it's not going to affect you too much. Another difference between this and the 6S is the Touch ID 2. So 6S has the Touch ID 2, which is so much faster than the Touch ID 1. Touch ID 1 isn't that bad, but definitely it's lacking in speed. And you notice it immediately if you come from a phone that had a Touch ID 2 Generation 2 sensor. So the first amazing point about the SE is how easily it fits in your hand and how good it feels. So I'm holding it in my hand right now and it feels so good. It's like a perfect fit. It honestly feels like phones should be this size. It shouldn't be any bigger than this because it's so easy to grip. It's so easy to just use with one hand without feeling like you're holding a huge tablet. With the iPhone 7 Plus, you often have to use 2 hands because the phone is just so massive. But again, with that massive screen and the massive phone, you get a few advantages that you don't get in this phone, like the battery. I use my phone almost all day, and when I use my phone all day, a lot of the times the iPhone 7 Plus and many other phones, they just get so annoying. They start to make your hand cramp, and it just feels uncomfortable after some time. However, with the iPhone SE, I have not noticed that at all. I've been using it for such a long... I had the iPhone 5 for a year and a half when it was out, when it was the newest phone, and I've been using this, and never during my usership experience of that and this phone have I ever faced cramps or uncomfortableness, and I feel like I could honestly hold the phone for the entire day and it wouldn't feel bad at all. Another thing it's kind of weird, I didn't notice it until I actually started using the phone. I wear formal shirts most of the time, so the formal shirts I wear come with a pocket here. So generally what I did was when I had phones like this, I would just plop it into my front pocket real quick when I was just doing something and I didn't need to put my phone away. I just need to put my phone away for a second or two, and then I would grab it out quickly. With the iPhone 7 Plus and the bigger phones, I can't fit them in the front pocket anymore. And even if I can fit them, they stick out so weirdly that I don't bother. I just put it in my jeans or my pant, whatever I'm wearing that day. I just slip them into my pocket. But with this phone, it's so much. I finally remember how awesome it was just to plop it into your front pocket and just grab it when you needed to. So if you do wear formal shirts, you'll love that kind of versatility that comes with having a small phone. Number 3, I think that this really goes to show the iPhone SE's. It's not something that I would always compare, but for this phone I will. It's the price. The price at which this comes in at is completely a steal. I would say that if you're not a heavy phone user and you just need phones for basic calls and messages, basic photography, light app usage, you shouldn't even bother looking into the other phones. The iPhone SE is so perfect for you because it's really light, it's thin, it weighs a lot less than its brothers, and it's extremely affordable. And it's still being made by Apple, so you'll still have support for everything. And you get so much more accessories and everything because it has been in production for 5 years. So you're going to be able to find cases, screen guards, accessories, everything for this phone so easily. So having that kind of flexibility with so much options and accessories, and I honestly, these phones have so many accessories, I've personally seen them everywhere. So that makes life a lot easier for people who are not that into phones. Again, it goes along with the theme of this phone. This phone isn't for everybody, but it is for those select people who need to have a phone but don't want to have a big phone. So in conclusion, I would like to say that this phone has been a very good daily driver for the past week. I enjoyed it. The only issue I kept having was battery life. Battery life ruined the experience of this phone for me, but I am a power user, so that's not going to be the same with all of you guys. As I stated in my last video, this stuff is so perceptive, it changes from person to person. So if you're the kind of person who doesn't use their phone as much, who doesn't need such a bulky and big phone, this phone will work perfect for you. But if you are a power user, you like to consume a lot of content and media on your phone, this probably won't work out as well for you as other phones. The price of this phone is excellent. I think that Apple has killed it with this phone. I really wish that they keep this form factor around for longer, maybe even improve upon it. And I'm glad that they didn't kill this model off for this year. However, I did expect an update, but I'm glad at least they didn't kill it off. Thank you guys for watching. Follow me on social media because throughout the process of testing this phone, I kept on putting up so many updates on Twitter and Instagram. Definitely follow me for more behind the scenes stuff for my further videos. If you enjoyed the content, subscribe to the channel so you can get more up-to-date notifications about what I'm doing. Hit that bell icon so you know exactly when I upload a video. Thank you guys for watching. I hope to see you in my next video.